Hey, so I'm going to show how to use Houdini like a little bit of Photoshop. So to kind of get going, um, at one point I realized that you can use a grid. Let me see if I can get this grid showing up correctly. There we go. And you can use attribute from map, and you can load an image this way. I'm going to use which image? I'm going to use this image. This is of me um, drumming, and you can't see anything. If you increase the rows and columns, you're going to start to see it. Say 200 by 200. Go to attribute from map, invert in the image settings, invert the V, I believe, and then here's like a low res image. As you see, so what we've basically done is taken an image and converted the pixels into polygons. They have point color, so every single pixel is now a polygon. And I need to make this image the correct resolution, dimensions, and give it enough subdivision so that it shows the image properly. And if you start working with larger images, or really if you try and do this kind of, in an actual project, it's going to get really unwieldy because if you have like a couple megabyte image, it can very well be in the millions of polygons, and it's pretty slow and to work with. So to demonstrate that, you can also there's a couple other ways to load images in. And now, by the way, that attribute from map approach is a good technique to know in general that you can bring in an image as point color. But if you're like really doing image manipulation and not just like loading, I don't know, some sort of, you know, there's a time and a place for it. But let's say so we're loading in a file here, and I can choose the same one. Now this will show it. I'm a little I don't really know what's going on with this file node. It has like four primitives, 4 points. So it has a different primitive for each channel of the image. I'm sure there's a way to work with this. I'm not entirely sure how to work with this in this level. You can also do in the COPnet compositing network. If you go in here and you drop down a file node, you can load in the image like this, and it is slow because this is basically doing what I said. This is sort of like the same thing as attribute from map. Um, what's wrong here? Um, wow, what's going on? I don't know why it's all blue. But let's see the so it's like 3 million. Why can't I see it though? Oh, I think you gotta get a composite blue. Oh, there's that. Uh, so I think if I drop down a null here, let's see it that way. There you go. Yeah. So this is like really, really heavyweight. This is 3 million. Let's see what's going on. Why can't I see it? Anyway, I was doing this before and I was able to see it. I'm not sure what's going on, but um, give me a sec here. Oh, there we go. I don't know what just happened, but I think I just pressed for some buttons. But this is basically the same thing. Every pixel is now a polygon, so you can work through this the same way. As you do kind of any SOP level stuff. And Yeah, it's really heavyweight. It's like 3 million. It's a lot when you're doing a loop over every pixel. Doing that 3 million times is quite a lot. Um, Now, what's a faster way to do this? Basically shaders. So let's just show another way to do this. We're going to create a grid here, and then we're going to do a UV. So the grid should be on this plane, so we can actually see it. And now to get your image, there is a way to get the dimensions of the original image. I don't know if it's um, one second. Okay, sorry about the rambling. So I had to reference how to do this again. So in order to get a grid with the exact dimensions of an image, we actually do use that cop. I can use that cop technique I showed. We get a file in here. What? COPnet. Go in here. File. There's no input options defined for the JPEG format. Wait, what just happened? Oh, I think hit. I'm sorry, desktop pics. Yeah, sorry, I don't know what just happened there, but so basically in this grid, I can just do a reference on it. So I can say channel dot 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 slash copnet slash. You can actually just go in here, and there is a size parameter. So if you copy this parameter, go back to this grid, and then you paste relative reference. So that's size 1, and then over here we get size 2. That'll just make sure our dimensions are correct for the original image. And then we use a, actually, let's set our rows to 2, just for starters, so there should be only one primitive thing. And then we can just do a quick material here. Um, yeah, obviously this is just basic setting of a material. Do I have a messed up scene view? I think my program might be screwy. No, okay. What's going on? Oh, I missed my UV project. Sorry. There we go. So yeah, so there's an image. There's a single primitive, and it's just being applied through the shaders. And I think you could. What I'm going to show, I think will probably work with any shader, any renderer. But I'm just going to do with Mantra because it's easier, and I'm not actually needing any of the raycast stuff. Maybe doing it with like Karma is faster. I mean, with Redshift is faster because it's GPU based, but this isn't like a heavyweight rendering thing. It's just like some basic shader stuff, so it's not a big deal. It's still faster to do it even in a CPU shader than it is to do it in SOPs. So, but what am I actually talking about? So basically, I'm just talking about like material overrides and how, for example, I could do something I might have otherwise done in Photoshop here in Houdini. Now, let's say, for example, I want to take my body here and give myself color and give everything else, make everything else gray, right? That's going to be our example. So in order to do that, basically I'm going to take this grid in like a broad conceptual terms. I'm going to add a polygon which outlines myself. And so now my grid is going to have 2 polygons in general. And then I'm going to apply a shader to it. And then with material overrides, um, going to change the display properties of primitive A versus primitive B. And you could do this obviously with multiple materials as well. But sometimes you just want to use the same material for everything and just have some variation there. So I'm just going to show you something that I just kind of figured out how to do. So I'm going to put my render on the quick material here. And I'm going to type in curve, and you're going to get this curve polygon right here. So I drag this out, leave my display on the quick material, go to the viewport, press enter. Now I'm drawing a curve, okay? So I'm going to go, and this is just a straight line curve. If you're comfortable with Beziers and stuff, you can do that way as well. I'm also not really being super duper careful here because I'm just demonstrating this. But yeah, depending on what you're trying to do, you might want to take more time with this or use Beziers or NURBS or whatever. So I'm just going to do a real quick and dirty on this one. Basically everything except my body. is going to be in this polygon here. Now, if you have multiple shapes that you need to outline, you can just draw multiple curves. So I'll just show that in a minute. Let's just be a little rough about this. So yeah, as you can see, actually in this case, there are pretty much multiple curves because there's this little section over here that's not kind of going to be contained here. So I'm honestly not even going to like do the whole thing because it's a little boring. So I'm just getting really lazy about this right now. Cool, and then you click the last one, then you close it. Now, if I look at my curve, I do have this shape that I've outlined. So now I just take a Boolean and I do geometry A minus geometry B here. And if I apply my material after this, if everything goes according to plan, okay, so I think I need my UV project afterwards. Huh. So why doesn't this material be? So let's look at our Boolean result here. Right, so we select on the primitive. So now we should have two primitives here. Now it looks kind of like it's reversed, which makes me wonder. And like the UVs are correct if I look here. There we go. So yeah, there's two primitives and it's still showing the same image. Basically. So now we're going to create a material, a MatNet. Okay. Sorry, not. Well, we're going to create a material node, but we're also going to create a material network as well. In here, I'm going to create a material builder. This is going to let me promote parameters to this, and then I'm going to control those parameters using in the material this local overrides thing right here. So in the material builder, I'm kind of going to just, I don't need this displacement stuff. Yeah, and this is fine, the surface global. So if I take the CF to the, and the, well, actually, no, we're not using surface color and stuff. So I'm actually just going to use a UV chords to get my texture coordinates and then a texture node here, plug the UV in there. What is the texture? We load up our texture, plug the color into the color. Now, if you're using an RGBA image, you can use the RGBA signature right here, and you can put that into the opacity and such. You can also do, you can split, it'll return a vector 4, and you can split that into the components with vector 4 to float, and etc. So anyway, now at this point, if we go to our material and we actually assign it, if we go to Geo MatNet Material Builder here, well, why can't we see it is the question. Oh, I think it's because we actually need to go to render view. So I'm going to actually create a camera by control clicking right there and then go to render view. This is what I was working on earlier, but it's my band logo. I'm trying to work on doing like a variation for each letter, like as in a different texture. I didn't quite finish that yet, but I'm just showing this as it stands. So you can see here what's going on. Give me 1 second here. Okay, so now basically what we want to do is take our two primitives and apply some different effects in the shader for that. So it's actually pretty easy. You don't even have to like import the primitive attributes here. All you do is promote any variable inside this shader, and then you can control that from the SOP level using primitive attributes. So for example, let's say we want to take our color and do a multiply here to do a tint, okay? Well, I don't know. How do you grayscale something? I think it's like you. Let me look up how to grayscale part of an image. Well, I guess what we can do, just thinking about it a little bit, is we can take the overall, I think it's called luminosity or luminance. I think that's the brightness. And then we can turn this into a vector, a normalized vector. So if you go float to vector, I'm not sure if there's another way to do this, but this just kind of popped into my head. Let me just normalize that. So I thought that would be a grayscale. Maybe if I get the length of the vector. And do it that way. Okay, that looks kind of promising. So there we go. So I guess you don't need that normalize. I don't know, maybe you could use luminance here too. I wonder if that would work. Okay, I guess that works too. So now I guess I want to like lerp these two values based on something else. So I think it's like linear interpolate. Now is it mix? So that's mixing. So color mix, I guess, is what I want. Primary, secondary, and bias. So the primary is going to be our original color. Secondary is going to be our grayscale. And then we're going to output the color here. So right now bias is 0. So what we do is middle click on bias parameter. If I go here, you can see there's a name and a label. The default amount. So if I change this, you can see what's set by default. So let's say the default, it doesn't really matter. We'll say the default's 0. Okay, so everything's going to be normal. So now if we go to our, and actually we want to do this export always thing. I don't really know what this does, but I think, yeah, I think you should do that. So now in our material here, so basically what we want to do is add a local override, I guess. And then choose parameter here, bias amount. And then if you see, if I change this, it's kind of instantly just doing for the whole thing. But what I can do is I can do let's say a attribute create. Um, let's do a group first, or yeah, sure. Let's just first do an attribute create. We'll set what was it called, bias on the primitives to 0, and then I think if I change this to 1, it should just, yeah, so see, it's already reading this primitive attribute, just kind of automatically loading that in here. You can also write expressions in here. If you write local variables, you can use the H script like $PR, I think, for the primitive number. I'm not going to get into that, but yeah, you can also write the expression that way. But it's easier just doing it here, and then attribute create. We're going to do this one just on. We're going to also set this as bias, set this one as 1. So right now it's applying to everything, but we want to actually just change, do a selection here, so we want to do a prim selection on this one. So we're setting this one to 1, and everything else is 0. Now let's see what actually happens. Did I mess that up? So there you go. So I had the wrong type. But yeah, so there's something, right? And it's obviously like a little weird to do this in Houdini and shaders, but it is nice if like if you want to do a bunch of like NFT or like not even NFT because I'm not really about that hype, but like if you want to do just some sort of a bunch of variations on an image with procedural techniques, this is one way to do that. Using these material overrides can be pretty useful. That's about it. Thanks for watching.